All right, so we'll talk about Meteor Kitchen. Peter Kapaonic, I think. Serbian guy, I've been talking to him recently. It started out, I discovered it, and then I asked him questions, and then I said, oh, I can fix some of your English on the site, and he said, well, here's the link, go and check it out. So I did that and got talking about various things, and we've become friends recently, and we've been doing Google chats, which is kind of cool. My daughter, he lives in Serbia, and my daughter is convinced that I'm joining ISIS or some terrorist organisation. You've got no idea. Because I was asking him about his work, and he said that there's been three wars in Serbia in the last 20 years, so the economy's pretty much shot. So it's quite difficult. He runs some accounting systems, got 90 customers, and last year 25 of them went broke. So things are a little difficult. And Morkel King, that's me on Facebook. I go by a whole bunch of names: Mikkel, Morkel, Mike, Mick, Mickey, whatever. All right, this is me on a recumbent bike. And this is a bit of a sidetrack, but it's actually relevant. Funnily enough, it is. I ride a road bike normally. I like to go on beach road. I race a little bit, not that I'm particularly good. And a friend of mine told me about these, so I went and had a look. Talked to the guy who made them and sold them, and he said, come and race. We've got this thing down in Geelong at the circuit there. So I went and raced, and it's amazing how fast that thing is. And I took it out on beach road a couple of times, and I sat behind the pack for a while, and then I decided I wasn't going fast enough, so I went past them, and I was sitting on 50 kilometres an hour, and nobody passed me. Like, normally people pass me all the time, but nobody passed me on beach road. And I was talking to them about it and saying, this feels like an unfair advantage. And they said, no, you're just thinking about it the wrong way. That's the way it should be. And the message is that Meteor feels like that. It feels like an unfair advantage that you've got this amazing tool that you can do full stack development from front to end. So that's where that fits in. All right, Meteor Kitchen, how does it work? Basically, there's a couple of ways of doing things. There's a GUI, which isn't really that good. It's a good idea, and the funny thing is that the GUI is built in Meteor Kitchen itself, so it's almost like the Yak thing. It's yet another compiler. So it's circular. Or you can work from an input file, which is either JSON or YAML. The JSON is really difficult to edit. Like, once you get past a few lines, matching braces and JavaScript syntax is kind of ugly with the commas. Like, if you've got a trailing comma after a brace and you don't need it, then it doesn't work. The YAML is a little bit easier, but not much. And I was talking to Peter about some other way of describing things, and we'll come to that in a little while. It's got this system where there's a generator, and it takes this input file, but it also has a whole bunch of widgets. So he's prepared a bunch of widgets and libraries and blocks of code that he uses to build your application. So you can just specify those things, and he pulls those in. And he's also given you the ability to put components of your own there. They can be Markdown files, they can be JavaScript files, they can be HTML, which is kind of cool. So you can actually maintain an application, the whole thing, in this world. Like a lot of things like Yeoman and application generators are pretty much a one-shot thing that you give it some, you tell it which framework you want to build, and it builds it for you, and then you're on your own. Whereas this one you can actually circulate and you can go full life cycle. And he also calls it a prototyping tool as well as a generator. All right. So this is the GUI. You've got things like you can drill into your collections, you can create customers collection and then fields within that collection. It's got a public zone and a private zone, and that keys in with the login, the authentication plugins in Meteor. Standard sort of pages, login, register, if you've got password and stuff. You can create the menus, you can create a private zone, but the screen's not big enough for that. You can do it in JSON, so you can edit in whatever editor. In fact, this is an editor in the kitchen itself. Same sort of stuff. It's a bit more detailed in here, but all of those attributes you basically got there's fields, it's all nested. You can do pages within pages, so you can actually have a whole hierarchical tree of pages if you want to. I mean, most web apps you probably only want to go 2 or 3 levels deep at the most anyway, but you can build deeper if you want. Alright, that's what the YAML input looks like. It's a bit easier, and I think, I'm not an expert on YAML, I think it relies on the indentation. Anyone want?
Mm-hmm.
It does? Yeah, okay. But the same sort of key value pair and indentation for the nesting. Alright. And then talking to him, one night he then went off and wrote a compiler, a parser overnight, stayed up all night and wrote this thing. And basically, his aim was to provide a description for an application. So if I copy all of that, so that clipboard, and then I'll go off in the right place.
You want to still?
No, it's all right. It's not the right place, never mind. Never mind where we go to where I need to go. I'll paste that in there. Put some other content as well. Oh, we've got 2 copies of it. Alright, that will probably do. Save that, and then I'll run this human to machine on this file, and I'll output to human.json. And then basically it's built this JSON file with all the stuff in it, which is cool. And then I can compile it using Meteor Kitchen. JSON, and then I'll put it in a directory called test. Actually, I want to use an existing one just to make it quicker. I'll put it in a directory called human, and it's basically just because it's going to download a whole bunch of packages and stuff. And then we'll say Meteor. So here we go. We've now got a little app, we've got a customer there, we can add a new person. That's pretty cool. Good. I like it. Have we got that recorded? Because I've got to send Peter the tape of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. You can build it, you can prototype an app. I mean, I imagine you can sit with a customer and go, okay, we'll just describe this in a few lines of English, press a button, away you go. So it's kind of exciting.
Have you tried moving the punctuation around?
Yeah. It doesn't give you any warnings if it's wrong. That's yeah, it needs a full stop at the end of every line, otherwise it just creates one more line. All right. Anyway, so It generates files in a structure that's reasonably well organised. These are sort of snippets of it. There's quite a lot there. Different files it creates, a HTML, it creates a JS and sometimes a controller. Often the JS files are just empty, they're just little stubs. So there's places for you to put your code all the way along. And it has this, it's got what's common to both, what lives in the server and client, and then the view stuff is there with the associated JavaScript. This is a site that he's got a whole bunch of demos on his website, and I encourage you to look at them. I'll show you this one for
Did you fix the English on those as well?
So this is a single page website, and basically this is, see it's familiar, and then, so it's actually quite simple to lay out a structure, and then all of the frameworky stuff, so you just have your content in one place in like little markdown files or HTML files or images. You put those in a directory, so that's all your own stuff. And then you have this JSON file which glues it all together, and you basically just press generate, and off it goes. You can have markdown stuff like that with code blocks, pictures, comments. You can have a feedback form as well, so all that's kind of cool. You can put your copyright notice on it, so, and it builds all the menus, all that for you. And then if we go to the next one, one of the things, maybe I'll show you the, how about that? This one is he's got a demo of this, and I need to work with him on fixing it, because one of the packages, if we just look at, this guy's written a bunch of packages. These are the ones that he's built, and this one here, this user roles, has, what is it, 5,400 people have used it, but it's got no documentation on it at all, so he hasn't documented it. And it's basically people who've used his kitchen and have therefore pulled it in. The demo that he has written has user roles in the code there, but you're logged in by default when you sign into it. You don't have access to this admin page, so you basically got to go and fiddle your Mongo setting to get yourself access, and then you've then got the ability to add a new user. So you give yourself admin, already exists, that's because it's using the same email. Right, cancel that. So yeah, this is a powerful feature, and it's something that could probably be used in the Meteor community, but people are probably not aware of it because there's no documentation. And then if we go on to the next one, there's some other stuff to look at. I'd encourage you to go and play with things. In fact, I'll show you the IDE. It's quite simplistic. So the idea is that you've got a bunch of files on the side, and this is built with the Meteor Kitchen. I've modified it a little bit to put myself, this is the source file, and then I'm writing Markdown here, and then that's stuff that will appear. So you can do that sort of side by side, like you can in Ghost or Showdown. And in fact, as you see, I'm working on a grammar for him to make this sort of human to machine a little bit better. And then, what's next? He's still actively developing it. I think he works part-time on his accounting stuff and part-time on this, and then all night as well sometimes. He's planning to open source it at some stage. It needs a little bit of refactoring before it's ready for that. He's going to build some more plugins and just improve the capabilities of it, and improve the parser, and I'll help him with that. I think it's quite an exciting project. It fits in well with Meteor, and it's in the right direction of just improving the capability and technology. So, very good. Any questions?
Any option to choose the output dialects like CopyScript or REST or SAS or anything like that, or the straight JS and CSS coming out?
There isn't at the moment, but I mean it probably could because it runs the Markdown compiler in there, so it probably could.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might have the less option already in. I haven't explored that, so you might be able to do it. I'm not sure about the CopyScript, but yeah. I mean that's basically just a command line, isn't it, to run CopyScript over?
It is and it isn't. A lot of manual stuff when you try and convert directly to CopyScript is not so successful because the converters don't have the context of the outer code.
Yeah.
So they don't always succeed that well.
Yeah. Oh, so you want to generate CopyScript rather than start a CopyScript and...
Well, if your templates are in JavaScript and you spew them straight through the CopyScript converter, you might get some sort of a result, but it probably wouldn't be great.
Yeah.
Whereas if your original source templates that you're using to generate or copy to begin with, then perhaps.
Yeah. Yep.
Something you hinted at it before is the idea of using this tool that you edit the generated file rather than edit the generated source, but any updates that you would make to your...
Well, I guess that's your choice, whether you give yourself a framework and then you say, right, I'm done with the generator, I'll then build my app from here, which you could do. Or you could say, well, I'm going to keep with that because I can see some benefits in there's plugins that come later, and maybe you can stay with that. So you put all of your source code as separate files that are basically just compiled in.
Yeah, I have to play with it, and if you put your code as separate files, you can regenerate. It recreates the base files taken from the spec, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't touch yours, so you can sort of extend it and customize it after. So
Yeah.
without losing the capability to go back and regenerate.
Yeah, if you overwrite them, yeah, if you edit them and overwrite them. I mean, you could set up Grunt to basically run the Meteor Kitchen over it, so Grunt and then Meteor would all be, so you just edit from your source file and it will pass all the way through.
Just a comment, I've used it,
Yeah.
and I found I was really excited about it actually, because
Yeah.
it's quite amazing. So first I was working with the JSON, and after a while that just became...
It's a headache, isn't it? Yeah.
So, but then I discovered, yeah, the GUI was really great. However, once it got to be a bit of a complex app, I kind of couldn't understand how it worked, because
Yeah.
you kind of get down this kind of rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually a fantastic generator and or development environment, and I think that the planning to open source part would really help it.
Yeah.
Because it's a great tool, but it needs some work.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but
Yeah. But it's really amazing actually.
it's a good concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else?
What are your top 3 features
For it? Well, improving the human to machine is a big thing, I think, just because it allows you to write code quickly rather than, editing JSON or YAML is kind of tedious. So that's probably the biggest thing. Currently it just shows rows in a table, like it just grows, so if you've got 1,000 then it grows up, so you just need to put a grid of some kind in there to paginate that. That would be a good step forward. And have a lot of smarter things like, look at the string that you're using and say if it's got the root date in it, it's probably a date, so also type it, just all of that sort of preemptive stuff could make it easier.
I found the help that was there was actually really good, but there was big gaps, and it was really hard to work out what was going on.
Yeah.
And even looking at the sample code.
Yeah.
But I really think it's an amazing lot of potential.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of work on it. You can tell it's quite a lot of effort in there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'd be happy if you wanted to contribute those gaps where you know the help, you can work it out. Yeah.
Does it generate any tests?
I don't think it does. That's something that would probably be useful. All right, well, if that's it, I guess we're done for the
I'd just like to say to everyone, thanks for coming out. Of course, thanks to our speakers tonight.
can find my contact.
So for those who don't know, we run the meetup the first week of each month on a Wednesday. So the next meetup is on the 2nd of September. So we'd love to see you all come out again.
We've got some